right, well, in case you missed it, President Trump declared April 2nd Liberation Day. Watch.
This is one of the most important days, in my opinion, American history. It's our declaration of economic independence. My fellow Americans, this is Liberation Day. April 2nd, 2025 will forever be remembered as the day American industry was reborn, the day America's destiny was reclaimed, and the day that we began to make America wealthy again. American steelworkers, auto workers, farmers, and skilled craftsmen watched in anguish as foreign leaders have stolen our jobs, foreign cheaters have ransacked our factories, and foreign scavengers have torn apart our once beautiful American dream. Our country and its taxpayers have been ripped off for more than 50 years, but it is not going to happen anymore. We are finally putting America first. In a few moments, I will sign a historic executive order instituting reciprocal tariffs on countries throughout the world. We will supercharge our domestic industrial base. We will pry open foreign markets and break down foreign trade barriers. More production at home will mean stronger competition and lower prices. From this day on, we're not going to let anyone tell us that American workers and families cannot have the future that they deserve. We're going to produce the cars and ships, chips, airplanes, minerals, and medicines that we need right here in America. We're going to build our future with American hands, with American heart. This will be indeed the golden age of America.
All right, tariffs, more tariffs, Liberation Day. All right, Kyle, I'll give you first shot at that. What do you think? Has this been a good thing or a bad move?
Absolutely a good thing, Gene, and I hope you all had a lovely Liberation Day yesterday. I talked to a lot of people who are very glad to see this happening. And as President Trump said, it's like, someone who's sick getting well again. And I have often used the analogy that we're setting a bone that's been broken for 50 years, decades, and it's finally going to get set. There might be a little pain and discomfort there for a while, but then you can walk again. And I think Donald Trump wants to walk and run and sprint ahead in bringing this country back economically, in wealth and health and strength. And I think it's really speaking to a new globalist view that we're having. For so many decades, America has propped up economically and otherwise, militarily and the such, other nations across this globe. And it's not an equitable globalist viewpoint anymore. That is unsustainable. America cannot be the country saving and propping up and handing out forever and ever. So we learned a lot yesterday. Another great chart from Donald Trump where we saw how inequitable these tariffs have been. And of course, you can look at that from the deficit side, or you can look at it from the tariffs numbers. They mean the same thing. It means America has been taken advantage of financially for absolute decades, and it's time for a change. So those four senators, who are anti-tariffs, Murkowski, Collins, McConnell, and Paul, who've spoken out against this and voting against it, I think we're disappointed to see that, because Trump is doing something that no other president has had really the courage and the guts to do for a very long time. He's going to put us on a path to wealth and strength and stability, and we're glad to see it.
Okay, Amanda, the tariffs, a lot of pushback. Why has this not been handled before now?
By previous presidents?
Right.
Goodness knows. I don't know if they were just wet noodles or if they were lazy. I don't know. I think that probably there is a status quo that has been set in Washington, D.C., and that is that not only is America the first country that rushes to the aid of our allies, but we are also the world's doorstep, and that is no more. You could tell by President Trump's demeanor yesterday that he was kicking tail and taking names. And you look at, I think for so many Americans, when they published that list of the rate at which other countries were tariffing us, Vietnam at 90%, Taiwan at 64%, China at 67%, Madagascar at 93%. And people are thinking to themselves, excuse me? A lot of us knew that there were trade imbalances with a lot of nations, but I don't think anyone thought that it was to that degree. I am not surprised at all that you've got the normal gaggle of Collins, Murkowski, and McConnell who are opposing this. I am a little disheartened by Senator Rand Paul. For someone who claims to be a libertarian, I would certainly think that he would want our country to look out for our own interests and be liberty-minded when it comes to our economy and our trade partnerships. But I guess not.
David, tariffs, I mean, the gross inequities that Amanda just pointed out, and I think she's right. Americans don't know. I mean, it was shocking. I learned things seeing the list. Where do we go from here?
Well, I think we just continue to have faith and trust in the man that we elected to be commander-in-chief of this country. I continually try to remind people that Donald Trump, before he was president, was one of the greatest business minds in the world, building an international conglomerate of buildings and hotel chains. And I don't know if you've ever been to, I'm sure you have, to one of Donald Trump's hotels, any Trump International, but they do everything to the 5-star, nth degree. They take care of everything so nice, so well. They want to make sure that their people are taken care of. And I've been saying for years, let the man do that for us, for America. That's what he wants to do. And I think that's what he means when he says that we're entering into the golden age of America. He knows how to get the job done. When he looks at this, as both Amanda and Kyle pointed out, other countries have been ripping us off literally for decades. Right. And no past president has had the cojones to do anything about it or just wanted to keep going along to get along. Finally, there's a commander-in-chief that's in the Oval Office that loves America, that understands business, that is a brilliant business mind, and is going to make sure that America is not getting ripped off anymore. So hold on tight, buckle in. Some of the tariffs are already causing good, positive responses from Ford. Ford said they're going to lower their prices to employee prices for everybody. GM is going to focus more on building in Indiana. We see Canada that's already talking about possibly buckling and getting rid of the tariff. So it's going to be a short season. I think it's going to be a short season, but on the other side of it, we're going to be stepping into some pretty amazing windfall with the External Revenue Service, hopefully replacing the Internal Revenue Service. That's my hope.
Well, yeah, without a doubt. Yeah, we actually stayed at the Trump Hotel during the DNC, which was something was really special about staying there in Chicago during the DNC. All right, let me show you this. President Trump, he's made a lot of predictions about trade. Was he right or was he wrong? Watch.
In the coming days, there will be complaints from the globalists and the outsourcers and special interests and the fake news. Fake news will always complain. But never forget, every prediction our opponents made about trade for the last 30 years has been proven totally wrong. They were wrong about NAFTA. They were wrong about China. They were wrong about the Trans-Pacific Partnership, which would have been a disaster if I didn't terminate it. If I didn't terminate that, United Auto Workers, you would have had no jobs in this country. You would have had no jobs. It was all going to other countries.
All right, there you go. All going to other countries. He was right. All right, we're going to take a break. We come back. Men and women's sports. It's still happening. Don't go away. We'll be right back after this.
FlashPoint Live returns to Caris Bible College in Woodland Park, Colorado, April 30th and May 1st. Andrew Womack, Hank Kuhneman, Lance Wallnow, Rick Green, Lou Engle, and Lorenzo Soul will join host Gene Bailey for this powerful two-night event. For more information and to reserve your spot, visit us today at flashpointarmy.com/register. April 30th and May 1st, the FlashPoint Army is climbing to new heights in 2025.
Pastor Brian Gibson, his church, Amarillo, Texas. I want to talk to every believer out there that loves the nation, loves Jesus, wants to see this nation governed with godly principles. You need to be a part of FlashPoint Live. There's the Word of God, there's a prophetic lens, and it's really an anointing to be like the sons of Issachar, who understand the times and know what needs to be done. Come on, let's connect and be a part of this ministry. Watch what the Lord will do.
Not just elections we have to stay engaged in, it's all of these other cultural issues as well. Issues that even come to life and death. But let me show you this one, because just when you think men and women's sports isn't a thing, it happens again. Watch this from Sky News.
Before you go, I'm interested in your take on this. Watch here as a female fencer, Stephanie Turner, was immediately disqualified and expelled from a USA fencing event after she refused to compete against a transgender opponent, Redmond Sullivan, who used to compete in the men's competition. She took a knee. Gary, I absolutely applaud her stance here. Every female athlete should do something similar. Shame on the sporting body there for punishing her the way they have. But it is just patently unfair to expect a female athlete to compete at an elite level, any level, against a competitor that identifies as female but is biologically male.
Yeah, no, she's a new hero of mine. Rita, I found this out at primary school. You know, in year 3, the boys didn't compete against the girls. The girls had their comp, the boys had theirs, because the boys were going to play a different game to the girls. What's changed? Nothing, except the wokeness that's destroying civil society across the West. It's crazy stuff.
Crazy stuff indeed. All right, Riley Gaines post. So when I took the knee, I looked at the ref and I said, I'm sorry, can't do this. I'm a woman and this is a man. And this is a women's tournament, and I will not fence this individual. It really can be explained as simply amazing. All right, Amanda, why are we still holding on to this so hard? I mean, this is common sense. Americans have voted, yet we're still dealing with this women and men's sports, men and women's sports.
It is quite unbelievable. I cannot for the life of me understand. I mean, look, we all know how politics works. Republicans do it. Democrats do it. They aren't necessarily following their gut instinct or their moral compass. They are following what the surveys and their political strategists and advisors are telling them to do. Let me tell you, this is not a 51-49 issue. This is, in some areas of the country, a 95-5 issue. But at large, it is an 85-15 issue. I cannot understand why Democrats have advisors who are saying, look, this is what the polling looks like, and yet they just keep tweeting through the ratio and barreling down the road and doubling down on something that just isn't popular. And I applaud this gal. Bravo to her for having the courage to do this, because she's at a severe disadvantage, as are most women up against most men. Look, I grew up with two brothers. They are both larger than I am, and I told them, you both are bigger than I am, but I don't fight fair. I will bite, I will pull hair, I will do all of those things. But she's not even in a scenario where she can do that. So not only is she not bigger, she's also forced to fight fair.
Kyle, what do you think?
Well, I think, and this is a real head scratcher, because this is, in most places nationally, an 80-20 issue. And as Amanda said, in many areas, much more than that. In politics, you don't get numbers like that. Yet, for some reason, it seems to be that people on the progressive left particularly have picked this up and run with it as the new mantle. This is their North Star for some reason. And my theory about it is that what reproductive rights were in the 2024 election, men in women's sports, and this push to elevate anyone who's transgender, to celebrate it, to give them benefits and place them above others who are not transgender, will be the guiding North Star for the Democrat Party going into 26 and 28. It doesn't make sense based on the data. It doesn't make sense based on the science or the biology. But I think this is where they're at and running with it. And two Republican lawmakers recently, as in the last couple of days, have even put forward legislation to further clarify what is a woman and what is a man, because a lot of people are in this country who believe that this is okay, this men and women's sports, can't answer that question. And of course we have biological differences. There are 6,000 genetic differences between men and women. You cannot take a man and completely turn him into a woman, and vice versa. And so it's kind of sad that we have to clarify legislation, and some of these cases are going all the way up to the Supreme Court to achieve that clarification. But this is where we're at. And I guess my hope and my wish for this country, truly, Jean, is that this is feminism gone so askew, and why can't we just celebrate our two genders and their God-given roles and celebrate women as women. At the same time, we celebrate men as men. And this twisting is so sick and so evil, and it's harming people, and it's harming women and girls. We're really backwards on this issue. I'd like to see us get it turned around.
Yeah, David Harris, who, by the way, still identifies as a man. Thank you for that. The whole feminism issue that Kyle brought up, it's really the most anti-woman issue out there when you do this. David, this is crazy. Why is it that this small group of people, we've all said it, the ratios are way out of bounds. So why is it this small amount of people are having such an effect on organized sports?
I think the only way to explain it, Gene, is it's a spiritual battle.
Right.
It is literally a shroud of deceit that has blinded individuals to see the truth. And then let's look at the core of exactly what the messaging is for a man becoming a woman. It really means God messed up. What they're saying is God screwed up and put people in the wrong body. And so they are championing it just like they champion abortion and the right to try to kill a baby in the womb. They champion it like it's their religion. It's a part of, I guarantee you, probably every single one of whether it's 5, 15, or 20% of the individuals that think it's okay for men to compete against women in sports and demolish and break bones and other things. Those people are probably also okay with ending a baby inside the womb. It is a spiritual battle that we are in.
Right.
It shows you that this can't be won politically. It has to be won spiritually. And what we need are spiritually, morally minded individuals that are in positions and places in politics, in local government, in leadership, that are then enacting the moral values that we get from the Bible. But it's just proof that insanity is real, the enemy is real, darkness is real, deception is real, and they're proving it all.
Without a doubt. All right, let me go to White House Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth, because he's a little different twist on this issue. The same standards for men and women. Watch.
Here at the Defense Department, we are restoring the warrior ethos, and that means we got to be fit to fight inside all of our formations. That starts with standards and going back to basics. So for decades, the military I joined, there were different male and female physical standards because men and women are different, and that's understandable. But there were certain jobs, combat MOSs, that were only for men, and so you had a male standard. Then in 2015, under the Obama administration, against the advice of the military services, opened up all those combat MOSs to males and females. Fine, if that's their decision. But they never changed the standards in a lot of those roles. So you still had higher standards for men than for women in a lot of those combat MOSs. Some changed it, but not all did. We're fixing that. We're ensuring that any combat position across any of the services, and the services are evaluating that, has the same standard for men and women, which means anybody can join, but the standard is to meet what it takes to do that combat job, rigorous physical standards, so that your sons and daughters, those that join our military, have the best possible units, the most lethal units. So this is a standard review, looking at combat units, looking at men and women. No standards will be lowered, only at the highest level. And we look forward to all our best warriors joining those units. It's a review that's important, long overdue, and the kind of thing we promised inside the Trump administration.
All right, Amanda, you hear the review they did. I think the key word here was combat, but I want to get your take on that. I mean, they're changing the standards for women in those positions. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, for other people out there who are eternal competitors, look, nobody wants to win something by being given a head start, and that's what this is. This is a difference between true equality, which is what the Secretary of Defense is instituting within defense, versus equity, where the left likes to kind of raise people and they like to grade on a curve. Listen, the reality is that for women in the military, a 7mm .8, a 270, an M4 carbine is not going to be at a different weight for a woman than it is a man. It weighs the same. All of the capabilities and all of the skills required should be the same, because you're not going to be given a lighter task as a female. And quite frankly, and this kind of ties in with the last topic we were talking about with transgenderism, with respect to transgenders being in the military, if you can't decide what gender you are, or if you're confused about that, then I don't want you watching my six, because if you're confused about that, then I have no idea where your decision-making skills are when it comes to literally life and death.
No, true. Kyle, your comments.
Yeah, our military has gone by the wayside in terms of standards. Did you guys know that in basic training right now, there's this thing called a stress card? That if a member of the military is going through basic training and they start to feel anxious, they can literally pull out a card from their pocket and they get to go have a nice relaxing time out in a safe space. We've got to re-implement standards to create a lethal fighting force. We are putting these people, investing a lot of money into training them to defend our nation and quite often defend other countries. So the standards have just been lowered to the absolute bottom of the barrel, and we need to bring that back. So what Pete Hegseth is doing is he is in essence, rebuilding our military and giving these people, these men and women who do want to serve, and that should be the goal, the opportunity to rise to this challenge, to be trained, to be the best of the best, to work together, have each other's backs, and defend this country. So I'm glad to see it. I'm not sure how the other side, anyone opposing this, is going to litigate it, because what he is saying, in effect, is partially some of this argument that they have attempted to make, and that, what's the difference? Men and women's sports, what's the difference here? Well, here we're setting a standard. You want to serve in the military? Great. This is what you need to do regardless of your gender. So again, glad to see it and glad it's happening, but we've got a lot of work to do to rebuild our military, and I think this is a really good initial step.
All right, let me get David for you to wrap it up on this topic. When we're seeing this, women having the same standards as men, do you feel like that? Do you agree with the ladies? It's equal?
Absolutely. Yeah, they summed it up brilliantly. It's something that needs to be done in our military. When it comes to somebody that is operating on me, I want the best person for the job. I want the person that's most capable. When it comes to somebody flying an airplane, same thing. I want the best person, most capable, qualified. When it comes to the military, people defending our nation and defending the other military personnel around it, it needs to be the best person capable for the job. And I think it's a brilliant move, because I think what's going to wind up happening in the coming months and years is it's going to show a very clear distinction between what men are capable of and what women just aren't, because of the biology. It's just the way that it is. And I think that it's going to just further secure the notion that women are women, and honor them and respect them for them and what they can do. Right. But don't expect them to then go compete against a man when only men could do, this type of training and qualify at this level of military expertise. It's going to make a clear standard, and it's something that absolutely needs to be done. And God bless Pete Hegseth for doing it. Yeah, it's so good to have the right people in the right positions. All right, let me change topics here as we start to wind up the show. Jesse Waters, we're starting to hear little bits and pieces, the truth about Joe Biden. This won't shock you. Watch.
The media covered up the biggest scandal in presidential history, and now they're cashing in on it. For 4 years, we were told Biden was sharp as a tack, and any evidence that proved otherwise was a cheap fake. But now that the Democrats lost and the dust settled, reporters are selling off all their dirt in brand new books. Biden's secrets are coming at us like a fire hose. Today, we're finding out Biden's right-hand man, Ron Klain, told author Chris Whipple that Joe was mentally and physically shot. Klain helped Biden prepare for that debate, and what he saw scared him. Klain was startled. He'd never seen Biden so exhausted and out of it. Biden was unaware of what was happening in his own campaign. Halfway through the session, the president excused himself and went off to sit by the pool. Biden didn't have anything to campaign on, so he came up with a strategy. Look confused while Trump was talking, so voters would, quote, understand that Trump was an idiot. Klain told Biden, sir, when you look perplexed, people just think you're perplexed. And this is our problem in this race.
David, is it perplexing or shocking? What do you think?
Yeah, no, there's a lot that's coming out. I had another gentleman on my show last night that's published a book called Fighter, where he talked to a lot of the interns underneath Joe Biden's administration in the White House. And they were sharing things that they had to put down neon tape in the halls and neon tape in places that he would go so that he knew which way to walk. He had his own makeup artist that would put makeup on him before he'd have meetings with his own cabinet so that they would not know just how bad off he was. Eric Swalwell in 2023 had a meeting with him, and Joe Biden didn't know who he was. Eric said he knew right then. that Joe wasn't in his right mind. So the very party that championed him, and all up until right before the absolute complete debacle on the debate stage where President Trump slaughtered him, because again, he's a guy that's not even there, kind of easy to do, but President Trump obviously made it very clear. All up until that point, the liberal lamestream media continued, along with every single Democrat, including Kamala Harris, continued to try to champion him. He's running circles around us. He's fitter than he's ever been. There's nothing cognitively he could do it. Any kind of test you want, he'll pass. They lied to us. So the book Jesse Waters was talking about, other books are coming out, probably literally the biggest scandal in American history. A sitting president of the United States that was propped up as a puppet was not there. What was he doing? Who was making the decisions? That's why there was auto pen. Somebody was using the auto pen on his behalf. The president of the United States wasn't home. He was somewhere else, and the Democrats covered it up.
You know, Amanda, when we, every one of us has something in the media. What's our responsibility? You know, there used to be decades ago where the media would cover for the president. They would try and not show certain or unflattering positions, things like that. And now, obviously now that's not it. And it's all in the light of truth. But how far do we go when we talk about Joe Biden, who is obviously impaired? We knew this back when he was running. How far should we go now with this?
You know, I don't profess to be a neutral arbiter of what is happening in the political world. I obviously have my opinions about things. But as journalists, for people out there who are trying to pass themselves off as newsmen and newswomen who claim that they are neutral journalists, they are as consistent as oatmeal raisin cookie batter. They look at President Trump. They look at the way that he operates and maneuvers, the fact that he's the first person on Twitter every morning and he is the last person on there every night. He is working, what certainly seems like 20 hours a day. I don't know how the man gets any amount of sleep. And somehow, I know everybody has seen these side-by-side comparisons of, George W. The beginning and the end of his term, and Barack Obama, and certainly Joe Biden. And you look at President Trump at the beginning of his first term compared to now, it is pretty remarkable. And I will also add, what Democrats did to cover up for Joe Biden, it obviously was not the right thing to do. It wasn't the ethical thing to do. And it also wasn't the kind thing to do to Joe Biden. I mean, what a humiliating situation where you get tossed aside by your own party because of your cognitive condition. I will say, even though it wasn't right, even though it wasn't ethical, and even though it wasn't kind, I'm glad they did it because it forced them to hang on to him and then have to let him go at the last minute and squeeze Kamala Harris in there in the most undemocratic way ever. And then we had the results that we did in November. And I'm not, I've said this before, the way that President Trump won this time around, it feels like it had to be that way. And just the spiritual aspect of things with President Trump coming in here, winning the popular vote, having such a strong mandate, that wouldn't have happened if he had won the election in 2020. He would have had a split Congress. I don't know, I don't think he would have had the popular vote necessarily, even if he won the Electoral College. So this time around, President Trump knows exactly what he is doing, and he somehow seems more spry doing it this time around than he did the first time around. And maybe that's because he does have the wind at his sails and a mandate on his desk.
All right, Kyle, let me get you the same question. Are we going far enough, or should we pull back on the coverage of Joe Biden?
Well, it's interesting now to hear the perspective of people who clearly participated in this collusion to defraud the American people. The entire Biden White House participated, his entire administration, the legacy media, many of whom were receiving payments from U.S. aid with our taxpayer dollars. So many people had to collude for this defrauding. And I guess maybe it's just me, but I would like to see some people held to account here. So hearing about what was really going on, and if you take the national temperature, yes, people knew something was very wrong. The emperor had no clothes, truly, while we were being fed that story over and over. And not just he is clothed in the most beautiful clothing. Nancy Pelosi said this is a Mount Rushmore president, and everyone is saying he's just the sharpest, the best, the brightest. This man has been in politics for half a century. It was so easy to see that progression and see his cognitive decline, his physical decline. There was no hiding that. So I'm glad to get the truth now. And I think a lot of people are deserving to know what was really going on. And as Elon Musk just unveiled when talking about what was really happening over these last 4 years, he said they were not asleep at the switch. And so, yes, Joe Biden was not functioning, but there were plenty of people working really hard and doing God knows what. And so I think the exposure, the transparency now is worthwhile. I think we should be spending our time doing that. And the American people deserve to know what really happened over these past 4 years.
David, I just come back to you on this. It really is elder abuse. I don't remember which one of you said that, but we're looking at elder abuse of what we saw with Joe Biden. But the point I was getting to, and you guys have all, in your own way, came to this conclusion, or in your comments, was we actually, if we're going to cover what's happening, we must cover even the parts that are uncomfortable, even though he's for the other side. I don't think anybody expects any of us to be middle of the road on our beliefs when it comes to politics. Like, I agree with Amanda on that. However, we must show so this does not happen again. This cannot be what we saw. And listen, we have not seen anything yet from that's going to come out, I'm sure, about the Joe Biden presidency. Before I move on, Dave, I want to give you a chance to kind of wrap up, comment on that.
Yeah, I think the ladies nailed it. I mean, America needs to know, deserves to know, and most of us, I believe, want to know the truth, because it shows exactly the real underbelly of the Democrat Party, those in charge, and how close we were, literally, to that party trying to take us over. I mean, can you imagine if Kamala Harris and Tim Walz were in the Oval Office right now? Nothing would be exposed by Doge. All the USAID money would still be going out. All the fraud, waste, and corruption. The southern border would still be open. There'd be more millions and millions of illegals flooding in with no end in sight. And America would be over in 4 years. We wouldn't be the USA. We'd be the USSA at the very least, United Socialist States of America. So Americans need to really understand what was at stake, how close we came to truly losing our country, and then hopefully that'll make them all very thankful that those of us that did stand up, show out, and support President Trump got him back in the Oval Office and stopped that downfall from happening.
True. All right, D.C. Drano kind of addresses this in a little different light. What we want is we do want answers. We want to know what happened. But there's all of this stuff with Doge, like you've talked about, that we've been trying to figure out what's going on. So he posted this: one significant election fraud arrest, one Epstein client arrest, a COVID creation lockdown arrest, Big Pharma, Russia collusion, Trump assassination attempt arrest, a Doge. Any one of these, we'll know that progress is being made. But look at what Dan Bongino says. Just because you immediately don't see it doesn't mean it isn't happening. Kyle, when we see this happening, I mean, that makes you feel better. Does this administration have to go slower than previous administrations on bringing out the truth?
Well, Gene, I think that they have set the expectation that they're going to go at breakneck pace, which they have been doing. And so it's sort of made everyone's head spin for a minute, right? Donald Trump has been preparing for this, not just since Election Day, not just in his campaign, but since he lost the election, if you agree that he really truly did lose in 2020. And a lot of the people working for him now have been working over those 4 years. They have been preparing. This has been underway. Now, they've just gotten in office. It's been about 2.5 months. And look at all they've accomplished. It is fast and furious, which is great. But some of these things take time to do properly, as we have just witnessed now with these initial Epstein binders being given to certain media personalities. That didn't go exactly as we believe that Pam Bondi had planned it. So they're being cautious. They're being careful. They've set an expectation that things are going to happen quickly, but I think we need to give them a little bit of time to make sure that it happens the right way.